Deep in Oregon, there is a small town called Redwood Hollow. It's on the maps, but almost no one goes there. Even the local sheriffs try to stay away. They say that if you stop in the forest near the old school, you can hear a whisper. He calls by name. And if you answer, the legend says that you won't go back the way you were.
Can you hear me?
But these are the places that hunters of urban legends are interested in. So on Saturday evening, 4 friends, Dylan, Marley, Jake, and Sam, were driving on an empty road surrounded by thick fog. The headlights snatched only scraps of pine branches, flashing like hands reaching for the windshield. Dylan, the host of their YouTube channel, held the camera in front of him. "Here it is," he said, "the city where the teacher and the whole class of children disappeared. And it all started with a whisper from the forest." "It's already interesting," Jake grinned. "Who do you think will whisper today? Squirrel? Raccoon?" Marley snorted. "Or the wind. Legends are psychology and coincidences, but today we will prove it." Sam, who was sitting in the back seat and barely speaking, quietly added, "I'm interested in something else. Why is the city deserted? Who leaves all at once? And why didn't anyone come back?" He said it calmly, but his words made the car pause. They stayed at the old school. The building looked as if it had been left in a hurry. The windows were intact, the doors were not broken, but everything was overgrown, and the swings on the playground swayed from the wind, although there was almost no air. When they got out of the car, Sam froze. The wind seemed to repeat his name, but so softly that it could be written off as an echo. Dylan turned on the recording. "Guys," he said, "we're here. Redwood Hollow Old School. They say that this is where the last school walk of teacher, Miss Keeler, began, who took the children to the forest and never came back." Marley snorted. "And the birds flew away, the bears scared, people panicked. Everything is logical." But there was already uncertainty in her voice. The forest was too quiet. Even at night in the pine massif, you can hear the crackling of throws, the rustle of leaves. And here it's as if the whole world has held its breath. There is a legend about the teacher, Miss Keeler. She disappeared in the late 60s. The children said that in the evenings her voices were calling from the forest. She started taking students for walks in the dark. No one saw those children afterwards. And the last words she said to the neighbors were, "He's calling us home. If you hear a whisper, don't answer." They entered the school. The door barely stood on the hinges, but opened without a creak, as if someone had lubricated it just yesterday. It smelled of dust and dampness inside. There were yellowed leaves on the floor, and there were children's drawings on the walls, although the closing date of the school is the end of the 60s. Jake found a cool magazine. The name was stamped on the cover, Margaret Kaler. The last line is "Field Trip, 12 students." But strangely, there were no dates, just clean fields. "Why are there no dates?" Jake was surprised. "Maybe someone tore out the pages," Dylan suggested. But the sheets were untouched, and at that moment the door behind them closed by itself. She didn't clap, didn't hit, quietly, smoothly, as if someone had carefully covered her with his hand. Sam turned around first. "Did you hear?" he asked. "What?" Dylan replied. "Someone called me, quietly, but exactly by name." They looked at each other. Wind, echo, fear, or... The school corridor was long, as if endless. The lamp under the ceiling swayed by itself, although there was no draft. The walls were painted, not with paint, not with a marker, but with an ordinary pen, as if children, sitting on the floor, endlessly repeated the same thing. "She's coming. She's calling us. She's waiting." At the end of the corridor, there was an old door leading to the forest. Dylan pointed the camera there and saw a female figure for a second. Tall, motionless, as if cut out of paper. He blinked, and the figure disappeared. "Did you see this?" He exhaled. "No," said Marley. There was nothing, but her voice trembled. They came out through the back door, straight into the forest. The trees stood so close to each other that the light of the camera barely made its way through them. The fog became denser, as if someone was slowly lifting it from under the ground. The trail led deep. "Here it is," said Dylan. "The very path along which Miss Keeler took the children away." "Great," Jake grinned. "If she's still walking, let her seem." but after 5 minutes, it disappeared. It's that simple. I was going nearby, and suddenly no scream, no sound, only a slight, barely noticeable movement of fog. "Jake?" Dylan called, and suddenly the answer came from the forest, a voice that absolutely copies his own. "Jake, where are you?" Only that voice was too quiet, unrealistically quiet, as if it was pronounced right next to the ear, but at the same time, very far away. "It's not him," Sam said. They went back to school, hoping that Jake had returned there. Nothing has changed inside, except for one thing, the inscription on the board. She definitely wasn't there before. There are 3 left. Marley turned pale. It sounds like a countdown. At that moment, there was a sound somewhere under the floor. Slow, rhythmic, as if someone was walking downstairs. "A basement," Dylan said, and they came down. The basement was small, but the walls were painted with children's drawings. Each of them depicted a woman, sometimes in a long dress, sometimes in a school uniform, sometimes in the shade of trees. But she had different eyes in all the drawings. One is too light, the other is dark, almost black. "She's not a teacher," said Sam. The children were afraid of her. There were small shoes in the corner, neatly arranged in rows, as if the children took them off before moving on. Marley whispered, "Why did they leave their shoes?" And suddenly someone said Dylan's name very quietly. "Dylan?" He turned around abruptly, but there was no one there. The camera recorded a new shadow appearing on the wall. There was nothing there that could leave her. They decided to run. We flew up the stairs, ran outside, crossed the old playground. Whispers no longer seemed quiet. They were everywhere. Different voices, low, high, like children, like adults, but none of them sounded normal. It was as if it was being heard from the depths of the well. When they got into the car, Dylan turned around. "Sam, fasten your seatbelt." But he was silent. "Hey, are you okay?" Sam sat motionless, looking out the window. His face was too pale, like a man who stood in the cold for a long time. He turned slowly, as if by force, and Dylan almost dropped the camera. Sam had different eyes. One is light, the other one is dark, almost black. And when he spoke, his voice did not sound his own. "I can hear her. She calls us home." The headlights of the car blinked. Then they went out, and the whole forest answered him with a multi-voiced whisper. 2 weeks later, the car was found on the side of the road leading from Redwood Hollow. Empty, no traces of struggle, no traces of people. The camera was found in the driver's seat. The last recorded word was barely distinguishable. "Who's next?" And in the forest to which the car was turned, to this day some people hear a whisper calling by name.